Okay, so I'm in this scene and I'll just play it again before I start talking about stuff, just to point out all the things that I've added here and to make sure that you understand. So, um, speakers. Let me just get this audio working because it's kind of important. Okay, there we go. Okay, so audio is super important for your aesthetic. You want some kind of ambient sound for your sleep. It could just be dynamic sound, which is sound environment, like wind blowing, or it could be actual soundtrack. So I've got some bass things going on, and I got all this from Free Sound, that website is back to look at. But these are just good that I've got on Free Sound, one for wind, another one for the bass, which was supposed to sound a little bit like that. And there's another one, which is the faster one that I'm actually calling down. So it matches the other one a little bit. And so that's kind of giving me that tension. I'm moving more towards a survival horror type of aesthetic. I mean, it's the same. I mean, the thing is survival horror, but it's not. It's moving away from the alien type of aesthetic and more towards kind of like totems and some kind of thing that's happening. You see my laptop's running way worse than the school machine here. I've added some other things for the aesthetics up here too. So there's decals. Fine or not tokens, totems, the fine totems message written in blood there is the custom detail. Blood splatter. Decals are something that you can just put on top of your meshes. and they kind of just sit on them in the scene. And so that can be a really nice thing to have. I've added some other things, other mega scans. You can see I've added snow around the edges and sitting on top of some of these objects to make it look like this has been there a while. I haven't done much with the inside at all, but all of that stuff is there. And right here, when I get close to the door, there's a trigger box that is being provided by my character and giving me a message back that I need to find some totems. And then my GUI message at the top tells me how many totems I have. I added some particle effects to spinning. And I have my other sound that I showed last time that is adding to this spooky aesthetic. Now that I have 3 of these, I can come back here. The light changes, tells me that and the door opens. So I can go in at that point if I want to. And I can see that if I stay in here for a second, my lumens start to kick in. Inside of it, like my eyes have changed and adjusted to the dark. Looks very cold in there. That's part of the bloom, I think, that I have on my volume, post-processing volume. So it's really starting to get a feeling that I'm building with this game, and there's more things I'm going to add a whole altar inside of this thing, and probably more blood, and maybe the portal to somewhere else, and that sort of thing, and probably some fire. We're going to do fire. And I don't know, I haven't worked out the whole ending part yet. There's going to be a portal to somewhere, and then you know, that's gonna take me to some kind of ending. So maybe there will be zombies or something. I don't know. It's Halloween. It's October. I think scary theme kind of makes sense. So what I would like you guys to do is to start developing this basic mechanic for your games. Again, you're going to add something else different to yours that's going to make it a different, but you're going to have at least this base sort of dynamics and mechanics and some kind of aesthetic that you're building. It doesn't have to be scary. It could be something totally different. So, yeah, some of you are doing more of the, you know, on the desert island type of thing, or some kind of fields and grass and trees and stuff. You know, whatever it is, you can go find some good sounds for that. So I think sounds are really important. And freesound.org has a lot of sounds and a lot of loops. If you search for something, you can see here, I'm searching for an ocean waves loop to add into the ambience of my world, especially if you're close to the ocean. So I'll make it more location based as opposed to the the ones you just heard, which are 2D sounds. They're the same no matter where I go, right? The soundtrack doesn't change when you're running around your world. It stays the same. So let's take a look at, oh, and none of these, or some of these sounds come down okay, and I can just use them. But a lot of these sounds, I have to go into Audacity and edit, do something with them to edit the sound, cut things out, or change them in some way. So keep in mind, you're probably going to have to do some sound editing. This site is free. All you got to do is sign up and log in, and then you can start downloading stuff. It will ask you to donate every once in a while. If you download a bunch of things, it'll ask you to donate, but it doesn't force you to donate. You can say, not now, or something like that. So let's go back in here and look at what I'm doing to create that ambient sound. So I'm creating the ambient sound in what's called the level blueprint. So the level blueprint usually doesn't have anything in the graph portion of it. And so a lot of your nodes are available to you there. And if you're going to do something that has to do with your whole level, like a soundtrack or an ambient sound, it makes sense to put it in the level blueprint. And you access it here on this little sort of node symbol, like it's got a bunch of nodes here. In here, you can access some of those sort of project level blueprints. And you can see that when you come in here, there's not going to be anything here. It'll be empty. And if you want to add some sounds, you can go in and add an event begin play, right? Always, you're going to start with typing in event, and you'll get all of the things if you have the context sensitive on. Actually, you don't really need that for this, but doesn't matter if it's on. And you're going to look through all of your possible nodes here. And the main one, of course, is begin play, which starts at the beginning of the game. Now, you can see that I've got play sound 2D. So I could go straight out of that and type in play sound, and I'm going to get those 2D and location-based sound. I used location-based last time. Here I'm using 2D sound. But if you have multiple ones that are going to play, you can use this sequence node. And so when you come out of your event begin play, just type in SEQ or sequence, and you're going to find this sequence node coming up. And when you choose it, it's going to have a couple of pins to start, and you can click this plus to add more pins. And this creates connections, multiple connections coming out of event begin play. And if you don't need that one, you can remove it. So I've got several things here that I've added, and you can see that this one is the one for the Thing, similar to the John Carpenter's Thing synthesizer loop that I'm using. And then this one is the wind. And if you look, I've got these opened up here. Usually they look like this. So if you pull out, if you add a pin and you pull out of it and you type in play sound, you're going to get all of these different things: play sound 2D, play sound at location, spawn sound, and all of these things. And when you choose that, it's going to be collapsed and you'd plug in your sound. But you can open it up and you can adjust some things about your sound. And I'm gonna just look at a few of these things that I'm using here. So this one, which is the John Carpenter thing loop, it was pretty low. And so, you know, compared to the other sounds, I put them all in, hit play, and heard what it sounded like. And the thing loop was pretty low, and the one with the really fast sounds were was pretty high. So what you can see here is I'm using the volume multiplier to set this one to 3, which is increasing that one. And then on this one, which was very high, recorded very high, I'm setting the volume multiplier down to 0.15, which is reducing it. If it's less than 1, it's going to reduce it. You multiply by a decimal, you're reducing something. Okay, so I wanted it to go lower. And you multiply something by 1, it stays exactly the same, right? There's a little multiplication involved here because it is a multiplier parameter. And then there's a pitch multiplier too. I'm adjusting the pitch to 0.7 on this one because it was a really kind of high-pitched sound that didn't match the John Carpenter one that well, and made it a little more sinister sounding by dropping the pitch a little bit on it. And again, you can do this just by trying it out, listening to it, coming back in, changing it. So you can also change when the start time in that sound begins playing. I didn't really use that because they're loops and it doesn't really matter for these particular sounds where they start. And I edited them inside of I edited all of them, I think, except for maybe I didn't do the wind, but the 2 main soundtrack sounds I edited in Audacity to be exactly the way I wanted. So if I didn't like a part of it, I chopped it out. And so I don't have to change where it starts in here. I did that inside of Audacity. And you can see that I'm turning the wind up too, because it was a little bit low and I wanted it to sound a little stronger. So the other thing is these are loops. They don't loop, sounds don't loop automatically when you bring them in. So if you want a loop, if you don't want to be running around your landscape and all of a sudden the sound turns off or the wind turns off, then you need to turn your sounds on loop. And so when you bring in your sounds, I made a sounds folder in my contents folder. Here's my sounds folder. And so one of the ones which is looping is, let's see, those are door sounds. Here's the thing loop. So I'm going to open this one up by double clicking it. There is a looping parameter that you got to click. By default, it's turned off. It's a Boolean parameter. And you should know what Boolean means. Boolean means true or false, on or off, 1 or 0. Those are all the same thing in computer language. 1 is on and true. 0 is off and false. Those are all equivalent things in computer language. So you can see when I hover over that, it's checked, it's set to true. So that's a Boolean. And that's the only thing I think I did in here for these is just turn on that looping. So everybody should have some sounds when they hit play for their demo this next time. And you can think about what kind of sounds you want for that. Some kind of ambient sounds, soundtracks, whatever it is you want to do. And it would be probably good if you to use something like freesound.org where you have permission to use everything as long as you credit them if you end up shipping this game. Right? You put their name in the credits. Okay, I have other sounds for like the door opening and closing and the lock sound when you walk up to it and it doesn't open. I have a locked sound. And I got all of those by searching on freesound.org and bringing them in here. But those are not set to looping. Here's one that I actually edited in Audacity because what you're going to see on my door is that it opens, so there's a sound at the beginning, then there's no sound, and then it closes and there's the opposite sound on the other side. And so the sound that I found was just for the beginning opening sound. And I had to go into Audacity and copy it and paste it and put some empty sound in the middle for 1 second to make it fit my animation on the door, because the door is opening through animation. And I had to create that animation as well. So let's look at that. Let's look at this door system here. So I'm going to go to my door collectibles folder where I have all of these. And the main ones I have here, I told you that I moved the GUI code out from the MetaHumans third person to its own thing. So where that's actually happening, where I moved it to, is my door blueprint. So let me open that up and take a look at it. This is my door blueprint. Now it looks like a lot of nodes. And so let me talk a little bit about the general structure here, and then we'll go in and look at it more closely. Some of these nodes were already in the other one. We had these nodes here, which are the nodes for creating a widget and putting it in the viewport. And then this is actually removing it at the end. So you can see that I'm actually creating several widgets here. So those are all similar widget creation nodes, depending on what state we're in with the door. So when we first, there's basically, when you go up to the door here, there are 3 states. There's, I walk up to the door, I don't have enough collectibles, and so it's going to give me a locked sound. It's going to keep the red light on, and I could even turn on the red light at that point. I didn't do that, but I just have it on permanently. But the red light stays on, and it gives you a message back that says, you need to go find totems, or I need to find some totems. Whatever message you want for your thing, it's good to give a little bit of a hint to the player what needs to be done here. So that one is actually, I've got these commented, and it's this one right here, not enough collectibles, this line right here. And when that happens, it's going to give you both bring up the view of how many collectibles you have, and that's one of these widgets. And then the other widget, here's the plane of the 2D sound, which is going to be the lock sound, and then bringing up the other widget that fades away at the end through a delay and remove from parent after 5 seconds on the delay. So I went over creating these widgets last time. I'm not going to go over creating the widgets exactly the same this time, but I do want you to know how to create some of these things. So the reason this works is because I've got these branches here to take you to the different states. So let's just look at this from the beginning. And let's also, we're going to look at it from the beginning, and we also need to look at the viewport to see what the door actually looks like here. So this is the door I'm using. Let me actually get, I don't want to create every bit of this by scratch because it will take a while, but let's just look at how you're going to create this for the components. So we created the collectibles in a similar way. They have the same thing. They have a box collider, just like this one has. The collectibles here. Actually, let's open those up so we can compare them and start with the collectibles. So in the collectibles, we did something very similar. On component begin overlap, for this. So what I have here is on the collectible, I think it'd be better for me to go over this one first, is I added several static meshes. So we went to add, we did static mesh, and we added the statue itself. And then I made a point light child to it, and I made the box collider. Actually, I selected the mesh and made the box collider. So it's also, actually, no, it's child to the default scene root, because I didn't want the box to spin with the with this object. So we've got the box, and we scale it a little bit, made it a little bigger. We put the mesh on there, gave it a material, and I added a fire object as well by going to add, and this fire object, if you go out and look in you guys might want to use some of this. This is from the standard or the starter content. And if you go into your if you go out and you look in your starter content, you're going to find that there's stuff in there that you can use. And one of them says particles. And if I go into it, you can see that there's some cascade particles. Now, these are actually old particle system that's sort of a legacy particle system inside of Unreal Engine. And so, but they're here and they actually look good. And I'm using, I believe the smoke one here is the one I'm using. And if I go and I was going to originally use the fire, but then I switched it to smoke. And when you want to create that and use one of these, reference one of these inside of your statue collectible, you can see it's got these little stars next to it. That means particle system, cascade particle system. And so if I select my scene root and go to add, and I type in cascade, you can see that one of the choices there is cascade particle system component. And so I can then choose that and add it to it. Let's just, I'll go ahead and add another one. Okay, so now I could call this fire 2 or something. All right, so on the fire 1, under particles, I've got the smoke one, or it actually says steam lit in there. And I was just trying different ones. And on this one, under particles, where it says template, I could go in here and let's put P fire. And now I've got a particle system there that I could move up. And now I could have a flaming head on there. Pretty cool. Maybe I'll leave that. Let's take a look at what it looks like in game. So if I compile that, since I've already got these in my scene, it will automatically update those, and then we'll go take a look at it and see what it looks like. You know, let's just make this bigger. Pretty cool. Okay, so that's how you add particles to it, and there are particle stuff for free that you can download on the marketplace. Some of it might be Cascade, and some of it might be the newer system. Which I'm blanking on the name right now. I actually downloaded one that was from that system and pretty much works very similarly. What's nice about these, though, is you can go and open up the actual particle system here and edit it. Like if I wanted green fire, I could make that into green fire. But you don't have to if you just want to use it. If it looks good as is, you really just have to put it in there and it's just going to work. I might want to rotate this one, although I think it actually looks from this position good the way it is rotated. I'm actually going to leave that. Okay, so that's the elements of this statue collectible, adding static meshes, adding point lights, adding a box to it. And remember that when you do that, you want to select your main static mesh, right click, and add the on component begin overlap, or once you have the box, right? So make sure that you add the box first, collision box, so you have a box. And then after you have a box, select the box itself, select the static mesh when you add the box, and then select the box when you're going to actually add your event. And that's going to be on component begin overlap. So it's not actually in here because I've already got it for this box. And you also have these down here. You can see it's indicating that I've already got that one. And so when you do that, it will come up in your graph. So if I go over to my event graph, that's what we have here, starting this off. And what we're mostly always going to use is an overlap or collision with our character. You know, that's what's driving most things. I mean, there might be some things that we want an NPC or some other, zombie creature to collide with something and have something happen. But most of the time, it's going to be your character. And so this is like a critical mechanic of games that you guys should totally try to understand, is collisions. It's a fundamental operational logic in games that when this object overlaps this volume or this collider, this hidden collider of this other object, something's going to happen. It's going to trigger something. It's called a trigger. And that's what we created that box for. It shows up in our editor, but it doesn't show up in the game because it's set to that. And it's just there to register that overlap. And this is what's doing it. This is the code for that right here. And so it's a built-in procedure that is called on component begin overlap. You also have on component end overlap. So sometimes you want something to happen when you run out of the trigger box. So I'm not actually using that in either one of these, but you might want to use that. And you need to say, what kind of thing do you want to collide with? In this case, it says other actor going to cast BP Erno third person. This is not on Erno. That's why it's coming out of other actor. This is on the statue head, the totem that's rotating. So it is another actor that we're looking to collide with, and it is the third person character actor that we want to register for that. So when you pull out of this pin, you're going to type in cast to name of your character, and it's going to come up as a choice. And then out of that, you're going to have parameters that you can take out of that third person character. And that's where we put the variable that I want to register my pickups, how many I've collected of these statues. I can call it a statue. It's a golden stag head. So you can just give it a generic name like collectible if you want to, or you can give it a more specific one. But that's what you have to know that name. You got to go back and look at your Erno and your My Blueprint variables area to know what it is that you're using there. Now, I've used several of these things, so I'm actually got several in here that I'm not using. I should delete those, but I'm using this one, statue pickup, for this particular blueprint. And it's there. And that's the only thing that's really in this Erno graph. And what I'm looking for here coming out of it is, out of this pin, you do greater or equal to some number. And in this case, I have 1 plugged in here. So what is this doing? This is adding 1 to, actually, this is not add or equal to, this is not a condition. This is an add operator. So I'm coming out of this and type in add, and you want to add 1 to the same variable that you get. So when you pull out of this, you type in get the name, statue, will give me the variable, and I can get statue pickup. Okay, and then when you come out of this one and you've added 1 to it, then you're gonna come out of it and say set statue. And you might need to turn off context sensitive to get it to come up, but set statue pickup. Okay, and then I'm going to get this set node here. And then I'm coming out of that to play a sound, which we talked about. You just type in play sound. I'm using at location, which means I got the world setting of the statue collect mesh, because I'm inside of that. It's right there. I just drag it in to get it. And then I'm destroying the actor at the end. So that when you collide with this, when your metahuman collides with it, it's going to disappear. Okay, so that's the main thing that's making these collectible objects work. And it's adding to this variable. And you can do as many as you want. Every time you pick one up, it's going to add to that variable, 5, 10, 100, whatever. Doesn't matter. This random rotation thing here, which I'll zoom in on it so you can stop the video and look at it. This is happening at event begin play, and this is just adding a little bit of local rotation on those statues. So again, pull the statue, collect mesh, or whatever it is, your collectible mesh, into here so that you can pull out of it and do add local rotation. Go right into it through your event begin play. And at the beginning of your game, it's going to rotate that mesh. That's the target. However amount you put in here, and I'm using a random float range, random float in range. Just right click and type that in, random float in range. And the range I'm setting is between 0 and 330. The return value is going to come into this make rotator. So just take out of that, make rotator, plug into Z, put it into your rotation here. And that will make it so that all of your things are rotating a little differently. You don't have to do that, but it's just a little nicer. So that's pretty much the entire collectible. And then we're doing similar things on the door. So here's my door. I did the same thing, added static mesh, And if you go to adding a static mesh and you go over to, let's just go to the door here. You're going to want to, I added one for the door and for the frame. And if you have your starter content and you type in, if you're looking to plug in a static mesh and you type in door, you're going to get a couple of sample doors coming up. And I can go, since I have it plugged in, I'll just click this folder here and it'll take me to it. And you can see what that looks like. This is the door frame here. Okay, it's just a sample, just a simple door frame. And you can do the same thing with the door here. Go look at that real quick. There it is. And it's a simple door. All right. There's a lot of Megascans with, there's Megascans with doors. Some of them look good from one side and don't look good from the other side. They actually are not meant to be functional doors. They're like a facade of a door. So if you want a real door that has geometry on both sides, that when you open it is not going to disappear on the other side because it's only rendering one side of the normals when you're playing your game, then you need to bring in a door that actually looks good from all sides. And this one, I'm changing the material texture on it. I'm adding some things over it. I changed the glass. All of that stuff I'm changing to make it not look like this default door. So when you look at it in my scene, if I zoom in on it here, it doesn't really look like that door, right? I've got this old texture on it. I've put a other thing on top of it. But it functions like a full door. Now you could just make a big cube and scale it to the size of a door and use that. That would be fine. Which is all it really is a big elongated cube. But the frame would be harder for you to create. So you might want to use the frame, or maybe you don't need a frame. Maybe you just stick your door in a hole that you make inside of your wall. However you want to do it. I have these two elements in here that I've added, the door and the door frame. And the door is child to the door frame. That's important. You don't want your door frame rotating when your door rotates. So the door frame is going to stay still. And everything else that I've added here, you can also add a point light, which I did. Actually, I added a spotlight. So I'll type in light and choose spotlight instead of point light. And I added a spotlight. And that just gives me a cone to adjust and turn it to a particular color. But the important thing is that light also doesn't move with the door. So that light is child to the door frame. It's not child to the door. The sheet, the metal sheet that I stuck on there that I downloaded from Megascans, that is child to the door because it needs to rotate when the door opens. So how you parent these static meshes in your components when you're making something like this makes a difference. Okay, so when you start making these, pay attention to how you're parenting things. And since I'm not making this from scratch again, you should make it the same way that I did the other ones, go to your folder. Right click. It's just a basic blueprint class, and choose actor and give it a name. Okay. Okay, so and then open it up and start adding your static meshes and your other components, any lights, whatever you want to be in there. I did put a box again for my collision box, and scaled it out so that I would be able to run up to my door, and when the door opens, I don't want it to hit my player. It can, if I really run into the door, it's going to hit me when it opens, because it takes a second to open. It's not like a door that slides to the side. I mean, you could do one of those, one that slide to the side instead of open like this door over here. But well, however you do it, you want to give it some space so that when you're running up to it, you know, I mean, if I had a sliding door, I'd probably make this a lot smaller. But it's smaller on the inside because the door opens outwards on this one. So if it's going to hit me, it's going to hit me when I'm running up to it. And I did that on purpose because the inside of my little cabin space there is not big. So I can't get that far away from the door. So I can't make a big, gigantic one inside of there, or it'd cover the whole thing, and the whole, no matter where I go, it'd be opening the door. So I made it go a little bit on that side because it opens outward and I can run right up to it. It's fine. It's not going to hit me. But when I run up to it from the outside, I need to give it some space. So you just select your box and move it around and scale it until you get it to the right size. And then again, you're going to select that box, right click it, or go down to the bottom of your details and do an on component begin overlap with that box to make it work. So if I go over to my event graph, that's what I've got: event, actor, begin, overlap. And so this first part of my door is exactly the same as the collectible. I'm looking to collide that box, that trigger box, with my third person character. So I cast to my third person character, no difference. And I go out of the object here, get player character, player 0. And then once I do that, I can go and come out of that character and get my statue pickup. So this is no different. It's exactly the same. I'm looking to see how many I have here with a greater than or equal to node. And that's going into my first condition. So the first condition, or sorry, actually, it's a little different than that because I'm coming down here. My first condition is to check whether the door is already open. So when you set these up, I had to sit there and say, okay, what's the logic to this? If I run up to it the first time, what do I want to know to begin with? And what I want to know is it already open? Is it already unlocked? Not open, physically open, but is it unlocked? Because if it's unlocked, then that means that I've already found everything and gone through it one time, and now I'm just coming up to it again. So that's, and I didn't figure that out at first, because I first started with this top line here, and later on, you can see that's why it's down here. is I diverted it down to this other branch because I decided, oh, well, I'm going to eventually unlock this. And do I want to have to go pick up all those things again to open it again if I want to go back in? I could leave the door just permanently open, but I wanted to close it. So that means that if I need to go in there again, it needs to be automatic, like permanently unlocked, unless I want to go find things again. And that seems kind of silly. So I decided, okay, we're going to do a check to see if it's unlocked first. In order to do that check, I need to make a variable called doors unlocked and make it a Boolean. Either it is unlocked or it's not. And it's going to start locked. So false. It'll start false. And so I went over to my blueprint and created a new, hit the little plus button here, created a new variable called door is unlocked, made it Boolean, and over here made sure it's unchecked in the details. And pulled that into my scene. Just dragged it into my scene. You can drag any of these things into your scene that you have on the left here. And so that gives me a condition. So I come out of that and type in branch and I get a condition. So the first thing is checking, is it already unlocked? True. I'm going to go down this line here, which is basically just to open the door. So that's where the actual, it's coming into the door open animation right here. False, I go up to the top here and check, do we have greater than or equal to 3 pickups? So that's what I'm setting as my open limit is 3. Could be 5, could be 100. Whatever you want to set in there is what it's going to be. So to do that, you cast out of your third person, type in your statue pickup to get a variable and go out of that and type in greater than or equal to, and then go into your branch. From there, I've got 3 things here, so I'm using a sequence. Again, true, I'm going into a sequence. So if it's true, that means that I've found the target number of collectibles. And there's 3 things that I'm going to do with that. One of them is target number of collectibles found. I'm going to bring up the show how many collectibles I've found. This is something, this set here, when you pull out, if I were to, let's say I go and do another one here. Let's add a pin here. And I'm going to go out and we'll do a create widget. So that gives me the same window, right? And I can plug in one of my widgets, WB, and I'll plug in one of these widgets. It doesn't matter which one. Let's do the collect hint one. So I've plugged in this other widget, and then I would want to go through and add the viewport. And then if I want to get rid of it, I might set a delay for how long it's going to be up, and then a remove all, either a remove from parent or remove all widgets, depending on whether I have more than one I want to get rid of or just one that I want to get rid of. So, but before I get to that, what you might want to do is pull out of return value. I didn't do this last time. And type in promote to variable. Promote to variable basically catches the name of your widget that gets created. All right, it catches the name of the widget, the return, the output of the widget node that you created. And so when you choose that promote to variable, and I'm just going to delete this one because I don't really need it. When you do that, it's going to make this set node, and it's going to make the variable over here on the left. It'll make a set node with the name of the variable, and then you'll go out of that to your add to viewport. Add to viewport displays your widget. And just to remind you about what widgets are, let me just put that back to the way it was and compile it. I'll go back to here and open one of these widgets. So this is the one that I'm displaying in that line of code right there. It's the one that has the number that changes because it's bound to it. Talked about that last one. So that's your widget, and it's being plugged in, but this doesn't show up at all, or anything inside of it until you actually display it. So until it gets to this add to viewport node. And then it's going to stay there forever, which is kind of what we did last time. I don't think I actually took it away. But normally you're probably going to want it to go away, unless it's something like maybe health or something. Even then you might want to take it away eventually. There's a couple of ways you can do that. One is this remove all widgets, which is actually going to remove all widgets. It doesn't have any other nodes other than itself. And then this other one, remove from parent, which has a target, which is that set node. So you go out of that set node into the target here, and then it will remove that particular widget. And if you put a delay in between, it's going to take however many seconds that you plug into that delay. So if in the case of this one right here, this line right here is that's the success line, and yeah, that's the one that I have, that when you actually get the door to open, it comes up as a message across the bottom. So if I go open that up, this looks like that. The door is open. And I put it down here. So it's actually sitting on top of the other widget that has the number up in the corner. But because the text is not in the same place, it's not going to be a problem, right? And I want them to be separate because I wanted one of them to fade and the other one doesn't, right? If you want text to come up for a hint and you want it to fade after 5 seconds, but you want to keep the score up as you're going to pick things up, then you can put those on the screen at the same time. They're just layered on top of each other, but you wouldn't want to put them in the same place because then the text would sit on top of each other and it would look bad, right? So you put it in a different place. You anchor it in a different place. So this text is right here. It's just got a canvas panel with one little thing of text, and it's anchored to the bottom right here. And you can see the anchor right there. All right, so it's a very simple widget being put up there with the other widget. And it's being displayed for 5 seconds, and then it's removed from parent. It's being deleted. When it removes it from the parent, this object right here, then it basically goes away. It's no longer in view, right? Because it's removed from the viewport, add to viewport. So up here, I'm using remove all widgets, which is basically in the logics, because this logics is kind of a little bit complicated, not super complicated, but there's several branches and things going on. At the end of it, there could be more than one widget open of the same type. And so if I use remove all widgets, it just gets off. Make sure that it's off my screen. It's done. Okay, so that's how those two lines are working. You can see these are very similar codes. They're just doing something slightly different and using maybe a different widget. This not enough collectibles actually is exactly the same as this line. It's doing the same widget, but it's also giving a different hint widget and playing a locked sound. So this line right here, you don't have enough collectibles. It's coming out of the false pin of this branch. So we're checking to see if we got 3. False means we got 0 through 2. And so it's going to run down this branch. It's going to display the number of collectibles that you have, which is actually the same as this branch up here. And then playing a locked sound. And then adding a hint saying you need to go find more totems. And then removing that from parent, that little hint from parent, so it fades out after a few seconds. All right, so you might have 100 things to collect. That's just going to be there, and every time you go back to the door, if you don't have enough, it's going to tell you go find more. Okay, you could have another line that says something different, or you could maybe do a random type of thing with an array to say different things. But this is pretty simple. It's just if you don't have enough, it's going to give you that one message. And then if you do have enough, it's going to run down this line and stop the collectibles, but it's also going to run down, if you do have enough, it's true. You have 3 things happening. It's going to also run down here to this bottom part, which is also happening if you've already opened the door. So there's actually 2 inputs coming in down here. 1 if you got 3 or more, and 1 if you, again, have opened it in the past. And so that kind of similar, but it's already open. And that's running into this couple of things. 1, it's turning the door light to green. So set light color is coming out of there. In order to do that, you need to bring in the door light component, which, since we're on the door, is right there. You just drag it in, come out of it, set light color, and you can choose a color. I chose green. And then we're going into, after that, a widget that says, great, the door's open. And then it's going to do the delay and remove the comment after that. Down here is where it's doing the animation. So if you want to animate something, what you're going to do is you're going to do a timeline. So if I, let's just break this one for a second here. And I'm going to go out of it and just type in timeline. And add timeline. It's kind of stuck underneath my Zoom thing at the bottom there. And give it a name. I called mine door open. Let's just call this door open 2. Okay, so I've got this door open 2. You can see it's got a lot of inputs to it and a few outputs. If I double click it, you can see that it comes into a track area. I can add a track. Let's say I want to add a track of 4 seconds. And it's going to be a float track because I want smooth animation. So float is usually what you use for a channel that you want to be animated smoothly. And it's a timeline. It's an animation timeline. If I zoom out and over, you can see it's a 4-second timeline. And the way I animated the door is to start with it closed. So if you go back and look at the door itself in the viewport, let's just go to the door itself. And you look at the transforms, by default, that door's rotations are 0 when it's closed. So door, if you put it there and you don't change, like you bring it in here and you don't change anything when it pops up inside of your blueprint, it's going to have 0 rotations. And so I know that if I actually go and grab that and I click on rotation, let's just grab the door and yeah, click on rotation and rotate it, I can see what those numbers are. Like a positive in Z, like 100 or so, or maybe if I really wanted to open up, maybe it's going to be like 140. All right, 90, I might run into it. 140 or so, 145, it's going to be good. All right, so let's just put it back to where it was and change the name back to where it's supposed to be. So that's what I want to look at when I go over to this timeline here. And I'm going to right click at 0 and I'm going to add a key and make sure that key is set to a value of 0. And I'll put it right on 0. All right, so time is 0, add a key with a value of 0 means it's closed at 0 in this timeline. And then maybe I go a second in and I add another key and I put the value up to 145. Okay, and make sure that I'm at the 1 key. All right, so you can't see it on the screen, so you got to click these 2 buttons here to sort of see it horizontally and vertically to be able to see what's happening with those. But that's going to open it in a very sort of robotic linear manner. If you want it to be more natural, you want to right-click these and choose auto to flatten out these handles. And that way you'll get an ease in and an ease out on the animation curve. So that's a nice smooth opening. It starts slow, speeds up, and then slows down at the end. Okay. And then if we go down further, if I want this to open, I want it to maybe open in a second, be open for a couple of seconds to 3, and then I'm going to go back down again to 0. All right, so again, we could just add a key there. We could add a key here and flatten out our handles. You'll see you'll get a little hump in the middle, which means the door would move when it's open. So I don't want that really. I mean, it could look cool maybe. But I'm going to flatten those handles out by hitting auto and choose flatten. And same thing with this one. I'll right click and choose flatten there. So now I get the ease in, ease out. It stays open. And then it's going to close again after 2 seconds. And you could add however much time in the middle there that you want. So that's the animation that would be on the door. If I go back to my event graph, that's the animation that's inside of this. And you would then want to, it actually doesn't do anything on the door yet because it's coming out of this this node here. It's a play sound node for the door sound. But it's not set to control any actual rotation. It's just numbers on a timeline. So the way you control the rotation is you got to bring the door in to it. So we have the door over here. We can drag it in. We can go out of it and set relative rotation. And we can, we want the target to be the door. Actually, let's just, that's static mesh socket. Sorry, I grabbed the wrong one. Okay, so target is the door. We would come from update over to here. And I want to actually just rotate this particular Z channel. So right click that and split the struct pin so that you get separate connections for each of the rotations, and then just use the Z one coming out of here. Okay, so it's just going to control the Z rotation of the door from this animation. That's what I'm doing up here. And at the end of it, you're going to want to set your door unlocked variable to checked, because at that point, you've opened the door, right? This line here that's coming through here, it's mainly saying that the door has been open. From the first time on, it's always open. So that's that you want this at the end. So the logic is that the next time we go up to the door, this is going to be true, and it's going to go down this line here and go straight to the door opening, right? So it's just true at that point. Or it's not open, it's unlocked. That's the thing. It's unlocked, it's not open. Okay, so that's how you get that part right there. That part is definitely new. Doing an animation. I'll go ahead and delete these nodes because we don't really Need them. Whoops. Make sure I don't have that selected. Let's connect that back again. There we go. So when you go out of here, just set door is unlocked. In this case, is my variable name, and you will be able to turn that on. Okay, so that's the entire thing. All the different rows and the logic for this first part here. Let's compile and save that. And that's the actual animation that I'm using. Same thing as what I did. Okay, so that's pretty much all of the dynamics that I have going on here. The only other thing that I wanted to talk about was these decals that I have in my scene. I've got a lot of decals. And if you go over to your bridge and let me just make sure I'm logged in. Yep. And I go look, I see that under the home, I've got decals. And if you click on it, you've got a lot of different options for decals. You've got actual doors and things that are really just facades. And you've got like leaves that you can put on the ground or on some objects, and graffiti and dirt, all kinds of things. You have a whole graphic content section of blood, spatter, which is particularly useful for my survival horror theme. You got to click on them so that you can see them. You can see that I've downloaded and added some of these. And when you download them, they're going to come under a slightly different area in your Megascans. So if I open my Megascans up, you'll see I have a decals folder that it made. And inside of there, I've got all of these different decals. And the nice thing about decals is that they really slide across everything. So for instance, if I grab the help one that I have here, let me see if I can find it. Let me just see what the name is. So I've got a blood stain, hand smear, high velocity blood, taped cardboard patch. I don't think I'm using that one. So I think it's this graffiti tag. Yeah, it's the graffiti tag one. So let's find the graffiti tag one. Yeah. So if I take this help one and I slide it this way, you'll see it'll eventually go over other meshes, as long as it's, close enough. If I go through my surface, it's going to disappear. If I go too far away, it's going to disappear. But it's got this like volume box, which will allow me to put it on anything. And if I want to put it on a wall, I just have to rotate it so that it's facing the wall. And there's actually, if I pull it up here, you maybe can see it. there's this blue arrow sticking out of it. It's not the blue arrow of the z-axis. It says which way this decal is facing. So if you can find the blue arrow, then you face it in the direction that that blue arrow is going to be, and it works fine. And you can color these just like anything else. Like I tried to make this help look like it was sort of in the sort of someone used their shoe to scrape it in the snow. So I changed the color of it. And if I go to it and double click the material to open it, the material instance, you can see that I've got color overlay on, and I've turned it to like brown, because that's what I wanted. I wanted to look like dirt, like someone's scraped their foot through it or something like that. And I think it's okay. It's not perfect, but the blood spatters are the same way. If I go do a search for those, let's get the high velocity one, which is this one right here. If I move that towards the cabin, notice what happens. Let me just make this a little bigger. Notice what happens when it hits the wall. See how it climbs up the objects? It actually looks kind of cool. By overlapping it a little bit, it looks like I get drips coming down the wall on the area right here, the door frame, a little bit on the door, and on this snow here. And that's like perfect. Like it looks like someone got killed right there at the door. For a survival horror type of feel, that's like perfect. So you can take some time to sort of place these, and they can turn out to be really interesting. Like this bloody handprint on the barrel, that's the same thing. Just rotate it till it gets so it's facing the barrel, and you got a bloody handprint there. And there's other things like footsteps and stuff. I've got a couple of footsteps. There's a couple right there. If I hit the G key and turn off my gizmos and stuff, you can see the couple of footprints there. So, you know, it's a nice thing, these decals, what you can do with them when you change the colors. You're going to be limited if you're just using the ones inside of Megascan. So you want to know how to make your own decals. And so I've got one here that I made that has the fine totems text there. And I've got it inside of my a folder I called My Decals. And so the blueprint for it is very, very simple. And the reason it's very simple is because I don't have a lot with this. Like if you look at the material blueprints for the Megascans one, many of them have multiple textures. They have a normal map, they have a roughness map. If they're going to look like it's something that's coming out that has a real texture to it and not just some spray paint on a wall or something, then they're going to have multiple textures. I didn't do that for this one. All I did was make the color texture. That's it. And I made that inside of Photoshop by just basically, doing a file new, creating some kind of size. I didn't even know how big I wanted, so I did 2048 by 2048, just a sort of a standard canvas size. And then made the background transparent and hit create. And then chose some text, made my color red, typed in whatever text, help me. Choose a font. And I did a little bit more to it. I wanted to make it a little bit thicker, and because the font I was choosing, I was trying to find a font that looked like it was written. Probably I should have just used a Wacom tablet and wrote help me myself. That would have looked more like blood splatter with a the right brush in Photoshop. It would look good. But I decided just to do it quickly and use some text here. So I chose a font over here, and the font ended up being kind of thin, so I just added a layer styles to it to add a little bevel and emboss on it. And that just gave it a little bit more thickness and added a little bit of an edge and a dark side to it where I thought the light might be coming from, and added that. And then just cropping it, select around it. You think it's big enough, then do an image crop and save it out as a PNG file. File, save as, make sure that you use on your computer, and choose a PNG file. Okay, and give it a name and save it and bring it into your Unreal Engine project. So that's what I did, and that just gave me this file. And when you bring it in, you can pretty much use the defaults. As long as you use a PNG file, it's going to have an alpha channel. And the alpha channel is what I'm coming out of here into the opacity. So when you create a material, all you get is this node. We've done that before. Create a blueprint material. I'll just do it again right here. Right click, choose material, and all you're going to get, give it m_name, and then when you open up, all you're going to get is that one node, right? That one list of parameters. And so when you have that list of parameters, just drag your texture in, that your ping file, just drag it into this window, and it will make this texture node for it. And then all you got to do is connect the RGB to the base color and the alpha to the opacity. And whatever was transparent in your Photoshop file will be transparent when you bring it into the scene. It'll work just like the other decals that I showed you from Megastudents. And so I dragged it in here and just stuck it on my little snow pile there. Like I said, if I'm doing this carefully, I should like go write that by hand and make it look scary. But it's fun for a demo. Okay. So I think I've covered everything. What's happening in this scene. to create both the dynamics and the aesthetics that I'm using here. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, so I'm going to want to see a demo of your project, the current state of your world building, and basic dynamics for pickup and opening a door by Friday. Now, I'll post this video as soon as we're done here, and you can start working on it. We'll spend all day Wednesday working on it. That's all we're going to do, is have you guys creating your basic dynamics in your world. And you know, if you need extra time, you could come in on Thursday or Friday. All right. All right, I will stop the video. Bye, Stella.
Bye, thank you.
Mhm.